The standing ovation was supposed to inspire everyone. Best-selling author Dr. Michael Harrison had just finished delivering his signature message about overcoming obstacles when the entire Ellen show audience leaped to their feet in thunderous applause. But Ellen wasn't clapping. Her eyes were fixed on one person in the front row who remained seated, an elderly woman whose shoulders were shaking with suppressed rage. And when that woman stood up and asked one question that cut through all the inspirational rhetoric, Ellen realized that sometimes the most powerful truths come from people who refuse to be inspired. The Warner Brothers studio was electrified with positive energy. Dr. Michael Harrison, whose book, Rise Above Everything, had spent 43 weeks at #1, had just delivered one of the most powerful segments in Ellen's recent memory. His story of growing up in poverty and building a multi-million-dollar business empire had the audience captivated. Ellen was practically glowing as she turned to face the camera. "That was incredible. Dr. Harrison, your message that anyone can achieve anything if they work hard enough is exactly what people need to hear." Michael flashed his trademark smile. "Ellen, I believe every person has unlimited potential. The only thing standing between us and our dreams is our willingness to do whatever it takes." The audience erupted again, but Ellen's attention was drawn to the front row where an elderly black woman in a simple gray dress sat perfectly still. While everyone celebrated, she looked like she was fighting an internal battle. "Dr. Harrison," Ellen continued, "your rags to riches story is truly inspiring. You're proof that the American dream is alive and well." "Absolutely," Michael agreed confidently. "I always tell people that excuses are just stories we tell ourselves to avoid responsibility. Every single person has the same opportunities to succeed." That's when the elderly woman stood up. Her voice cut through the celebration like a blade. "Excuse me, I have a question." Ellen looked surprised but gestured for her to continue. "Of course. What's your name?" "Dorothy Williams. I'm 73 years old." Dorothy's voice carried decades of authority. "Dr. Harrison, I want to ask you something about your message." Michael turned toward Dorothy with polished attention. "I'd be happy to answer, Dorothy. You say anyone can achieve anything if they work hard enough. Is that really what you believe?" "Absolutely," Michael replied without hesitation. "I'm living proof." Dorothy nodded slowly. "Let me tell you about my life, Dr. Harrison, and you tell me where I went wrong with my mindset." The studio quieted, as Dorothy's tone suggested this wouldn't be typical inspiration. "I worked 3 jobs for 42 years, cleaned office buildings at night, worked in a school cafeteria during the day, and took in laundry on weekends. I never missed a day in 4 decades. Never. Complained, never made excuses. I saved every penny I could." Michael maintained his confident posture, but something in his eyes suggested unease. Dorothy continued stronger. "I raised 5 children as a single mother after my husband died in Vietnam. Put 4 through college working those 3 jobs. Taught them hard work, personal responsibility, and determination." Ellen felt the energy shifting as Dorothy's story unfolded. "My oldest son became a doctor. My daughter is a teacher. My youngest son is an engineer. They all succeeded because they worked hard, just like you said." "That's wonderful," Michael said, though his certainty was wavering. "Your family proves my principles work." Dorothy's expression hardened. "Then explain to me why I'm still poor." The question hung like a challenge that couldn't be ignored. Ellen felt the studio's collective intake of breath. "After 42 years of working 3 jobs, after raising 5 successful children, after doing everything your book says, I'm still living in the same rundown apartment from 1975. I still buy clothes at thrift stores. I still can't afford to retire because I never earned enough to save." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Dorothy, there must have been opportunities you didn't pursue." "Stop!" Dorothy's voice cut him off surgically. Don't you dare tell me I didn't work hard enough. I scrubbed floors until my knees gave out and my hands bled. I worked Christmas mornings and my children's birthdays. I sacrificed everything for the promise that hard work would be rewarded. Ellen felt tears forming as she watched this confrontation unfold. The difference between you and me, Dorothy continued, isn't work ethic or mindset. The difference is that you were born a white man in a society that rewards white men for their ambition. When you walked into banks asking for loans, they saw potential. When I applied for the same opportunities, they saw someone to exploit. The studio was completely silent now. Ellen could see audience members shifting uncomfortably, recognizing truths they'd never confronted. I don't begrudge your success, Dorothy said, softening slightly. But I resent your implication that my struggles are my fault, that if I'd just wanted success badly enough, I could have had what you have. Michael's polished composure was gone. Dorothy, I never meant to suggest that inequalities don't exist, but that's exactly what your message does, Dorothy interrupted. When you tell people anyone can achieve anything, you're ignoring that some people climb mountains while others climb molehills, and calling it the same accomplishment. Ellen made a decision that would define her legacy. Instead of smoothing over the confrontation, she stepped directly into the tension. Dorothy, tell us what you want people to understand. Dorothy looked around the studio. I want people to understand that hard work and positive thinking are necessary, but not sufficient. Success is influenced by factors beyond individual control. Race, gender, family wealth, location, timing, and pure luck. She turned back to Michael. I want successful people to stop selling the fairy tale that their achievements are solely the result of superior character. It's not inspiring to tell struggling people that their circumstances are their fault. Ellen felt the weight of this moment. Michael, how do you respond? Michael was quiet for a long moment. Dorothy, I've never had my message challenged this directly. That's because you're usually speaking to people who already have the privileges you started with, Dorothy replied. You're preaching to the choir about how easy it is to sing. Ellen looked between these two people representing vastly different American experiences. Dorothy, what would you want Michael's message to be? Acknowledge that success requires both personal effort and external opportunities. Encourage people to work hard while fighting for systems that provide real opportunities to succeed, individual responsibility, and collective responsibility. Michael nodded slowly, showing genuine humility for the first time. Dorothy, you're right. My message has been incomplete. I've ignored the systemic barriers that make action insufficient for many people. Ellen stepped closer. Michael, how does this change your perspective? It changes everything, Michael admitted. Dorothy has shown me that my success story isn't replicable, because not everyone starts with my advantages. I've been promoting a mythology that blames people for circumstances beyond their control. Dorothy's expression softened. I don't want to tear down your success. I want you to use your platform responsibly. How can I do that? Michael asked genuinely. Dorothy thought carefully. Start telling the whole truth about success. Acknowledge privilege and luck alongside hard work. Use your influence to advocate for policies that create genuine opportunities for people like me. Ellen felt this was the moment for her gesture. Dorothy, what would you like your legacy to be? Truth-telling, Dorothy said immediately. I want people to understand that dignity doesn't require wealth, that worth isn't determined by achievement, and that sometimes the most important work goes unrecognized. Ellen turned to her audience. Today we've witnessed something rare, an honest conversation about success, privilege, and the American dream. Dorothy hasn't diminished Michael's achievements. She's provided context that makes them more meaningful. She faced Michael. What are you going to do with this understanding? I'm going to rewrite my entire message, Michael said without hesitation. Dorothy has given me the opportunity to evolve from harmful oversimplification to helpful truth-telling. Ellen made her final gesture, removing her elegant pearl bracelet and placing it in Dorothy's hands. Dorothy, this was given to me by someone who sees my worth independent of my achievements. You are valuable because you exist, because you've loved your children, because you've worked with dignity, and because you've told the truth today. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Ellen creating unprecedented space for dialogue. She invited both Dorothy and Michael to exchange views without commercial breaks. Dorothy, Ellen said, tell us more about managing 3 jobs while raising 5 children. Dorothy adjusted her gray dress thoughtfully. People like Dr. Harrison talk about time management, but they've never tried getting 5 children ready for school after working night shift cleaning offices. I'd come home at 6 in the morning, make breakfast, get everyone dressed, walk them to school, sleep 3 hours, then go to my cafeteria job. Michael listened with visible discomfort. Dorothy, your schedule makes me realize how privileged my entrepreneurial journey was. I had time for networking events, research opportunities, calculated risks because I had financial cushions you never had. Ellen nodded approvingly. Michael, that's the acknowledgement Dorothy requested. Dorothy, did you ever question whether your hard work was worth it? Dorothy's expression grew complex. Every day, when I watched people my age buying homes, taking vacations, retiring comfortably, I'd see mothers spending time with their children while I scrubbed floors, wondering if I was failing my kids. But you weren't failing them, Ellen said firmly. I know that now, Dorothy replied. But their success required sacrifice from me that people like Dr. Harrison never had to make. When he talks about doing whatever it takes, he means 80-hour weeks building his business. When I did whatever it took, it meant missing my children's school plays to keep the lights on. Michael looked directly at Dorothy. I'm understanding that we've been using the same words to describe completely different experiences. When I talk about sacrifice and hard work, I'm talking about voluntary choices pursuing ambition. When you talk about sacrifice and hard work, you're talking about survival. Ellen recognized this as profound. Michael, how does this realization change your message? It makes me understand my message has been inadvertently harmful, Michael admitted. By suggesting anyone can achieve what I've achieved through mindset and work ethic, I've been implicitly blaming people like Dorothy for not achieving more when she's actually achieved something much more difficult. Dorothy looked surprised. What do you mean? You maintained dignity, raised successful children, kept your family together while facing economic pressures that would have broken most people. You did that without advantages that smoothed my path. Your achievement is actually more impressive than mine. Ellen saw tears forming in Dorothy's eyes. I've never heard anyone describe my life that way. Society measures success by wealth accumulation, not by preserving family and dignity under difficult circumstances. That's exactly the problem with messages like mine, Michael continued. They reinforce harmful definitions of success that ignore the heroism required for people to survive and maintain humanity under systems not designed for their prosperity. Ellen pushed further. Dorothy, if you could redesign society to be fairer, what would you change? Dorothy considered carefully. Quality education funding not dependent on neighborhood property values, healthcare that doesn't bankrupt working families, wages that allow people to save for emergencies and retirement, not just survive paycheck to paycheck. She continued with passion. Banking systems that don't penalize poverty with low balance fees, housing policies that don't trap families in expensive rent cycles, childcare that doesn't cost more than most people earn. Michael was taking notes. These aren't abstract policy ideas to you. These are specific barriers you've faced. Exactly, Dorothy confirmed. When privileged people discuss systemic change, it's theoretical. For people like me, these systems determine whether our children eat dinner or go hungry. Ellen felt the exchange's power. Michael, what are you writing down? Everything Dorothy is saying. I want to transform my platform from individual motivation to systemic advocacy. Dorothy looked skeptical. Talk is easy, Dr. Harrison. Action matters. You're absolutely right, Michael agreed. What would convince you I'm serious about change rather than image repair? Dorothy thought carefully. I'd want to see you use your wealth and platform supporting policies that prioritize working families. I'd want you hiring people like me as genuine advisors who understand realities you've been insulated from. Ellen leaned forward. Dorothy, would you work with Michael on redesigning his message? Only if he's serious about advocating for systemic change, not just adding disclaimers to harmful messaging, Dorothy replied. Michael looked directly at Dorothy. I want to be serious, but I need you to teach me how to be helpful rather than harmful. Help me understand the difference between inspiration that empowers and inspiration that blames. The partnership that developed over following months surprised everyone. Michael restructured his speaking fees, so half went to organizations Dorothy identified for economic justice work. More significantly, Michael's entire message evolved from individual achievement to collective responsibility. His talks focused on successful people's moral obligation to advocate for systems providing genuine opportunities for everyone. Dorothy became co-author of Michael's next book and featured speaker at his events. Her voice became the conscience keeping his message grounded in reality rather than mythology. Ellen featured their partnership in multiple follow-up episodes, showing audiences that meaningful change could happen when people engaged honest dialogue rather than defensive debate. The original episode became a case study in business schools and leadership programs as an example of how privilege could be acknowledged and leveraged for positive change rather than defended. Dorothy Williams never became wealthy, but gained influence transcending financial measures. Her truth-telling sparked policy conversations, influenced political campaigns, and changed how an entire generation of motivational speakers approached their craft. Michael Harrison discovered his most meaningful professional achievement wasn't building his business empire, but learning to use his platform responsibly by amplifying voices like Dorothy's, rather than drowning them out with oversimplified success mythology. Ellen learned that transformative television happened not when she facilitated comfortable conversations confirming existing beliefs, but when she created space for difficult truths to be spoken and heard, allowing her audience to witness the honest dialogue democracy requires but rarely receives.